to another episode of Dial It Up. And today we are talking about the Quinjet, because it's a resource. So, welcome to the Quinjet resource tutorial.
It's also a character!
Yeah! So the Quinjet itself is a vehicle. We'll follow all of the brand new vehicle rules. We were lucky enough that the vehicle rules are printed out to the new vehicle rules.
Yay!
So I'm not going to go into too much about it as a vehicle. It has a couple of traits. It does have the autopilot trait, which is awesome for the new ones. And it also has pilot abilities, which we haven't seen from some of the Nick Fury vehicles. But the important part that I want to talk about is the resource dial, which is the dial on the back of the Quinjet here. So the resource dial can be added to the Quinjet at 5 points. It's going to work along the same line as the Brainiac skull ship, where this will actually, it's one of the very few times where it will increase the actual point value of the character being played. So he tops at 140, it would be considered a 145 point character or a 75 point character. So force construction. This resource costs 5 points. Quinjet may be played without paying this cost, but if you do, this dial is ignored. This resource must be assigned to the Quinjet. So the only way to play this resource is to play it on the Quinjet itself. It's part of the character. It costs 5 points. You don't have to add it in, but if you do, it can only be assigned to it. It is a resource, so you can't have another resource on your team. You can only have one resource at a time, so if you do pay the 5 points, that is your resource for your force, and it will only be assigned to the Quinjet. Likewise, you can ignore it and put another resource on your team. And clicking the dial. When you remove an ID card from the game using its call and help ability, you may roll a d6 and turn this resource dial clockwise that many times. When Quinjet clears action tokens or takes damage from an opposing character's attack, after actions resolve, you may turn this resource dial once clockwise. So, ideally with this vehicle resource character, because it counts itself as 3 characters for adding ID cards to your force, you're gonna want to play it with ID cards because that's how you get this resource to work. There's no limit on the ID cards that you add to your force except for the limit of the ID cards itself. Unlike the round table where you're only limited to 6, this one, it'll be limited to the amount of characters that you play on the map at the beginning of the game. And then from there, when you use the call and help ability from the ID cards, you get to roll a d6 and turn this resource dial that many times. When it clears an action, when it clears an action token, click it once. When it takes damage from an attack, click it once. I specify attack because there are times that you may be dealt damage without it actually specifically coming from an opposing character's attack. Scoring. If the Quinjet is scored, this resource is removed from the game and scored. So character KO's resource goes with it. Simple as that. And its final ability is I have some time to help. Give Quinjet a free action and choose an ID card on your sideline of equal or less points than the resource dial indicates. Place that ID card on the map adjacent to Quinjet, remove that ID card from the game and score it, then roll a d6, turning this resource's dial to the click number matching the result. That character is no longer an ID character, can't ignore pushing damage, and is returned to your sideline when it takes damage. Okay. This is big. So we're going to break it down. So the start off is giving it the free action and picking a character. So on the resource dial itself, in the bottom, the only thing that it shows is it's listed as point value. So at the bottom will be a number. It starts off at 10 and each click increases incrementally by 10. So 10, 20, 30, 40. That is how many points of a character that you can bring in from this free action. So at 10 points, you're not going to be bringing in a character because I don't think there's any 10-point characters that have an ID card that you can write. I'm trying to think of the small guys that have shield, but I don't think there's any that have the shield. I think once you get to 20, is Henry 20? Henry's 14.
Henry's 15 with no keywords.
But no keywords. So it's going to take you a while before you can get to a character.
Shield recruit.
But once you get to that point, you're going to be turning the dial anyways. So once you pick that character, it's going to go adjacent to the Quinjet. And then you remove the card, it is scored. You're not going to get that ID card back. That is done. That character is now going to be on the board as character. This works very similar to the Avengers Assembled power that the round table has, in the fact that that character is now on the board as part of your force, but it can't ignore pushing damage, and as soon as it takes damage, it returns to your sideline. What I really want to stress in the fact that as soon as it takes damage, there is no way to KO these characters. So they are coming in, wrecking house on a free action, and you can't kill them.
You can damage them.
You can damage them, and it'll send them away. And then they won't come back because their ID card is gone. But you won't score for them. So the most you're going to get out of these characters that are coming in on this free action is the 5 points that you'll get for having used the call-in help ability. And then once you bring that character in, you're going to roll a d6 again and keep clicking. Another thing that I do want to point out about the resource dial is that unlike some other dials that have you roll the die and click them, it doesn't say that it stops on its final click. Now, because specifically in the rules, it says that the dial does not stop turning once it hits that final click, it is possible to roll over it. Now, clearing action tokens, you may click the dial. Taking damage, you may click the dial. When you use the call-in help ability, you may roll a die. But when you use that free action to bring a character onto the board, you have to roll that die. So you're going to get up to the sweet spot, hit that 300, bring your really big guy in, and then roll back to the beginning of the dial. This is going to keep that dial spinning, and it keeps you from staying on that sweet spot and constantly bringing in these really huge 300-point guys to completely destroy your opponent. Now, that's not to say you're not going to do that, but it'll take you a little bit to build back up to that spot where you're going to bring out the big guy again. So that's the Quinjet. It's actually one of the more simple resources when it comes down to the rules factors of it. The only one that really that needed to be ruled on, and was ruled on because I ended up having to ask it about the round table, was the fact that as soon as these characters take damage, they're just gone. You're not going to be scoring for them. So that was the Quinjet, and we're probably going to be seeing it amongst teams now. So if there's anything you guys think that I didn't go over, questions, comments, concern, down below, and we'll see you next time for another episode of Dada.
Married with Clix is brought to you by Majestic's Heroclix sales down in Costa Mesa, California. Right now, they're in the middle of storefront change. In the meantime, don't forget to check out their eBay store. If you check the link down below, they always have great Heroclix stuff at fantastic prices, and they'll ship just about anywhere.